Baby, won't you hold on to me? Hold on to me.
It was the morning of March 27th, 2025, when quiet calm in Pike Road, Alabama, was pierced by the sharp crack of violence. The location was U.S. Highway 80 East, a stretch of road not unfamiliar with everyday traffic, but never accustomed to headlines. That morning, it became the center of one. Authorities received a distress call just after 10 a.m. A woman had been shot. Emergency services rushed to the scene. The Montgomery County Sheriff's Office arrived first. What they found would soon spark an investigation that reached far beyond the crime scene tape. A young woman, just 21 years old, lay in critical condition from a gunshot wound. She was identified as Gennia Grimes. Paramedics worked quickly. A decision was made to airlift her to the nearest hospital. Time was critical. Every second mattered. But the wound was too severe. Gennia Grimes died shortly after arrival. What had started as a routine Thursday had transformed into a moment that would fracture families, communities, and a university campus. Gennia Grimes was not a stranger to hope. She was a junior at Alabama State University, majoring in criminal justice. She dreamed of a future rooted in service, structure, and justice. She was part of ASU's Honeybees dance team, a proud, expressive space for Black women to embrace performance and identity. Her presence lit up the campus. But Gennia wasn't just a student. She was a mother. She had a 9-month-old son, Rogers McCloud Jr., his name shared with his father. A baby full of innocence. A baby now without a mother. Gennia and Rogers McCloud Jr., her boyfriend and the baby's father, had been together for about 2 years. They met, fell in love, and built what seemed like a promising life. But like many young couples, they had their challenges. According to family members, their relationship had begun to show cracks. There were talks of a breakup. But even in the midst of emotional strain, no one expected it to come to this. Gennia was known for her kindness, her discipline, and her determination to rise above the statistics. A first-generation college student, she often told friends how important it was to make her family proud. She was the type of person who helped others before helping herself. She was also a performer. The Honeybees team gave her a platform, a voice, and a sense of community. She danced with energy. She danced with confidence. And every step she took was a reminder of her strength. As news of her death spread, attention turned sharply to the man who had been with her that morning, Rogers McCloud Jr., just 20 years old. He was present at the scene when deputies arrived. According to police reports, McCloud gave a statement about what happened. But something didn't sit right. Forensic investigators began to process the scene. Ballistics, gunpowder residue, trajectory analysis. The science started speaking, and what it said contradicted what McCloud claimed. Detectives ran comparisons between the physical evidence and his statement. There were inconsistencies, details that didn't add up, details that couldn't be ignored. Within a matter of days, McCloud's version of the events began to unravel. On April 4th, 2025, McCloud was arrested and charged with capital murder. The charge carried weight. Prosecutors believe this was not a moment of passion or an accident. This was premeditated. The arrest shocked those who knew him. He was known as soft-spoken, often quiet in public. But behind closed doors, it now appeared there were things people hadn't seen. As the case developed, authorities began framing it as a case of domestic violence. Family and friends who knew the couple began to come forward. Some spoke of arguments. Some spoke of control. Others stayed silent, unsure what signs they missed, what moments they overlooked. Domestic violence often hides behind closed doors. It wears many faces: manipulation, isolation, threats, fear. In the case of Gennia Grimes, The truth of what she endured may never be fully known. But one thing became clear. This was not a random act. It was not a crime of opportunity. It was not a case of mistaken identity. The person who pulled the trigger was someone she trusted, someone she once loved, someone she had a child with. The timeline pointed to a relationship that had soured. A future once imagined had decayed into tension. Gennia may have been planning to leave. And for some, that's the most dangerous time. Alabama State University released a statement shortly after her death. They expressed deep sorrow, calling Gennia a light in the ASU family. The Honeybees dance team, who had danced beside her on stage and in rehearsals, mourned not just a teammate but a sister. Students organized vigils. Candles were lit. Posters were made. Flowers laid. Grief moved in waves across campus. Professors remembered her as thoughtful, ambitious, always on time. Friends recalled her laugh, her sense of humor, her strength. But the weight of her absence was felt beyond campus. In Atlanta, where she was originally from, her family prepared to bury their daughter. Her mother, who had spoken to her just days before, struggled to grasp the news. Her father, her cousins, her extended family, all left with questions, pain, and a child to raise. Rogers McCloud III, the 9-month-old son of Gennia and Rogers Jr., is now in the care of family members. Too young to understand loss. Too young to comprehend absence. He will grow up with stories, pictures, memories passed down from those who knew her, but he will never know her touch again. A GoFundMe campaign was started to raise funds for Gennia's funeral and for the future care of her son. Within days, donations poured in. Messages of love, sorrow, and solidarity came from strangers, classmates, alumni, and activists. People gave what they could. Not just money, but words. Words that try to honor a life lost too soon. The campaign not only covered funeral costs, but also created a small trust for the child's future. Family members say they will make sure he knows who his mother was, what she stood for, and how deeply she was loved. With the capital murder charge filed, Rogers McCloud Jr. now faces a long road through the justice system. Prosecutors will present their case, grounded in forensic evidence and the alleged inconsistencies in his account. His defense team will respond. They may challenge the evidence. They may present their own version. But what remains central is this: Gennia Grimes is gone. The state of Alabama does not take capital murder lightly. If convicted, McCloud could face life in prison without parole or the death penalty. The courtroom will become a battleground of narratives. But beyond the arguments, the evidence, and the legal strategy, there is one undeniable truth. A life was taken. As coverage of the case grew, it reignited a national conversation about intimate partner violence among young adults, particularly within Black communities. Advocates began pushing for more resources on college campuses, counseling intervention programs, awareness campaigns. They asked the hard questions. How can young women protect themselves when love turns violent? How do we teach men to handle conflict without control or aggression? What does real prevention look like? For many, Gennia Grimes became a symbol, a tragic example of what happens when warning signs are missed or dismissed. Gennia's mother, speaking through tears during a press conference, said her daughter had dreams. She wanted to graduate, to work in law enforcement, to provide for her son. She wanted to build a life. Instead, she died on the side of a highway. There was no goodbye, no final hug, just a call, a hospital, and a casket. Her mother now carries the weight of memory. She keeps her daughter's photos close. She looks into her grandson's eyes and sees glimpses of the woman she lost. And she prays for justice. The home where Gennia and Rogers Jr. once lived together is now empty. Her belongings, her clothes, her books, all reminders of what was and what will never be again. Friends still gather in mourning. They remember her dances, her voice, her plans. Professors still speak her name in classes she'll never attend again. And the legal system moves forward. There will be court dates, hearings, testimonies. Evidence will be examined, motions filed, verdicts awaited, but nothing will bring her back. Gennia Grimes was 21 years old, a student, a mother, a dreamer. Her story ended not in celebration, but in tragedy, a future cut short by violence. Now, her name joins a long list of women lost to domestic violence, and her legacy becomes a call to action for safety, for justice, and for change. This is the story of Gennia Grimes.